Hey, Greg here. Did you know that I've created a few walking tours of Bangkok? Using the GPS on your phone, the routes take you through some of my favorite areas of the city, exploring the fascinating neighborhoods and hidden history that give Bangkok its sweet, sweet mojo. Head to voicemap.me and search for Bangkok. On part 2 of 2, we welcome back Paul and Yuangrat Wedel to talk about their historical fiction novels set in Southern Thailand.
So if you're interested in good stories told well and the dramatic changes that took place in Thailand during the turn of the 20th century, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 after an accident involving a plate of poutine, a Timmy's double-double, and an ice skating accident on the Rideau Canal made me a wanted man in 4 provinces and 2 territories.
Wait, were you speaking English there?
I was speaking Canadian, close enough.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't even understand half of what that meant. but I feel bad for you.
Thanks, man.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a 1-year teaching contract 23 years ago, fell in love with Moto Sai guides being available anytime, anywhere, on a moment's notice, so I never left.
Yeah, when you stand there for more than a couple of minutes, when you're used to just sort of walking right into one.
It's an injustice. I feel now I'm so used to them being available everywhere that if I have to wait 5 minutes, I'm ready to file a petition with like the Human Rights Commission.
This is outrageous.
Who do they
think I am? You're like the elephant man. I am not an animal.
I am being horribly mistreated. We want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about the difficulties of moving from, to, or in between the Google, Apple, or Microsoft platforms, considering how much of our lives are online, how Greg's son saw a meme about the wild boar cave rescue and asked if it really happened, prompting a viewing of the film 13 Lives, and discussions on Lisa Blackpink's new video and whether even the mighty Lisa has the power and clout to completely shut down Yaowarat Road for her new music video. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
That's right. And don't forget, if you listen to us on Spotify, you can now hear all the bonus shows there as well. If you're a patron, simply link your Patreon account to your Spotify account and add our new feed titled Bangkok Podcast Badass Patrons Only to hear the regular and bonus shows in the same place. All right, on part 2 of 2, we continue our discussion with authors Paul and Yuangrat Wedel. You might remember them from season 6, episode 31, when they discussed their book Radical Thought, Thai Mind, but they are back to talk about their new book, or should I say books. In 2021, they released Beads on a String, a novel of ambition, revenge, love, and tragedy that takes place in southern Thailand during the tumultuous turn of the 20th century. And just recently, they released part 2 of the trilogy, titled Dark Karma, that continues their complex tale that mixes fiction with historical characters and real-life locations. We're real happy to have them back on the show to talk about how the story took shape and the research they did to bring their characters to life. It's always great to talk to these guys because they have so much knowledge about Thai culture and history. So here is part 2 of our chat with Paul and Yuangrat Wedel. Another really surprising element of this book as I'm going along, and just getting to the part, I assume you're talking about Pakdi, and where he's doing some stuff, and it seems to me to be getting into sort of some espionage almost work, which I wasn't expecting, but it's really interesting.
Yes,
You're making me want to read the book for sure.
But that's the purpose.
Right. Well, I have a question. Do the Chinese see themselves as Buddhists the same way that Thais do, or is there some kind of difference between the Thai Buddhists and the Chinese immigrants? Are the Chinese just business people who are not that religious?
Yeah, in Buddhism we have 2 branches. It's Mahayana or Theravada and Hinayana. Hinayana is Theravada and Mahayana, which is covered Japan, China, and Vietnam. So there are differences. The Theravada Buddhism in Thailand is like Burma, that we believe that there's only the Buddha, who is just a normal people, normal person that born like a regular, like a teacher. But in Mahayana, they see Chinese too. See, the Buddha has many, many lives. So they worship a lot of Buddhist form, last life, like being a warrior or the angel, whatever. So there's not much different about the religion, because the practice of the Buddhism in rituals, both Thai and Chinese, were not conflict to each other.
Understood.
Where in Malay, they strongly believe in their
in Allah or
Allah. No one else, even the Buddha, they claim that is the disciple of the Allah.
I see.
So there's only one God, and we don't believe in God, right? So it's a lot of conflict. That's why the Malay in the south. I'm from Surat, and I live in Talat Khek. Talat Khek meaning the market of the Muslim.
Yeah.
So although we have a lot of conflicts, in my time anyway, in national conflict or whatever, but as a people, we don't have any conflicts. But we are people, and I have very close friends who are Malay, and I just don't eat pork when he's around. So we associate pretty much. Very good.
Hey guys, I'll go out and have a vegetarian meal with Ed sometimes. I'll sacrifice.
Okay, I don't want to. I'm going to bring this up. I know this might play into some stereotypes, but I have this image of the Chinese being business people more than maybe the traditional Thais. So does that make the Chinese less religious, do you think, or are they still religious in their own way?
Well, I think both, depending on the person.
Oh, okay.
And we have Chinese characters that are very business-oriented, and we have one character who becomes a very devout Buddhist monk and looks back to the original teachings of the Buddha, tries to purify what he sees as teachings that have gotten too much involved with Hindu thinking or with animist thinking, and tries to restore what he sees as original Buddhism. And that's one of the central conflicts in Book 2. And the understanding of karma is something that there are differences about. That we deal with, and the characters in Book 2 deal with some difficult times.
Now, Yuangrat, you just mentioned something interesting I have in my notes here, and it was the word kek. Kek. Now, it's funny because among Farang circles, and sometimes there's discussion of whether the word Farang is offensive or not. And I tend to think it's context. Like, I don't find it offensive at all. But if someone uses it like, oh, you stupid Farang, then of course it's like, oh, that's offensive. One of the first, my very first night in Bangkok in 2001, I stayed on Silom, right across from what I was told was Wat Kek. And for those listening who don't know, Kek is what I was told is the sort of slang term, colloquial term for Indian. But in the years since, I've learned that it's much more complex than that. And some people, I've been told that some people still find it offensive. Other people are fine with it. Can you talk about that word and what it means?
Okay, Kek nowadays has three meanings. Historically, Kek is the Malay from the south only, right? But now we have the Hindus migrate to Bangkok or in the south. We also call Kek. The Tamil, you have the turban, Kek also. And the Kek Tamil have very unique career. He's a money lender, and very, very stiff, very strict. And we have a type proverb saying that if the Kek Hindu walk with the dog, we kill the Kek first.
Oh, well, Jesus. So that's supposed to be that's supposed to be a greedy money lender.
We hate
type.
them. But the Kek in the south, in the Thai, the south, we only call them Kek, not because of hatred, because they are different. They're just the Malay.
But
we call all the Malay Kek.
It's not a negative word.
No, just called Kek. But
I'm
now,
not sure.
in that time, well, And then nowadays we have the word khak. When the European, when the American migrate to Thailand, khak means visitor.
Yeah, that's the
Visitors.
literal translation.
And then
is kak.
now
So you
So
can
we
see
mean just
why.
mean visitor. You mean it's saying literally it just means visitor?
Yes,
visitors, yeah. The
but
one is khak, because you
Yeah.
are not a native. And according to Thai culture, you have to be hospitalized to the khak. See?
Okay. So you
So
have to show
this
them,
is
show
my
them,
khak. So
welcome
you
them.
my
Yeah.
hospitality. This is khak ma, so you have to give the water and entertain them.
Okay,
See?
okay.
but
So
I
it's
think
khak-
for Thais it meant somebody who's different,
yeah, it's different.
and this was really resented by the Malays
Yeah.
because they feel like they were here before the
Yeah.
Thais.
Right.
We
So
should be the
Right.
khak,
it's the
not
Thais
them,
who are
yeah.
the kak,
Right.
Interesting. Right.
and I think it's seen as a pejorative.
And I think the Thais, like everywhere in the world, we are also prejudiced.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Prejudiced
Of course.
too. So we call like Jack. We call the Chinese Jack, which the Chinese hated. Jack meaning Chinese who cut, who spit out the
That was
side.
the word we translated
Yeah.
in the first
Chink.
book as chink.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Not
I
like-
see.
I think
Jack.
pretty
Interesting.
equivalent in
It's-
terms of feeling.
It's so funny. It's such a universal constant. I just watched a comedian special last night. This comedian named Des Bishop, and he was talking. He spent years in China and he learned how to speak Chinese. And he lives in New York. And he says he was talking to the audience and he goes, the Chinese people, the word for white person is guailo. And he says, even in New York, the Chinese people still call the people who live here guailo. And I'm talking to them in Chinese. I'm like, you're the guailo. You're the foreigner.
Right.
But guailo, I think, translate directly as white ghost.
Maybe,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. My Chinese is rusty,
White
but it's interesting like that. These things, these identities, and these words, and they change over time, and it's never going to go away.
I
question.
think kak was used officially back in Chulalongkorn's time, but since then, I think Thai official usage avoids it.
Oh, I see. It's more informal now. I have a question for you too. When I used to teach a course at my university in American immigration in the U.S. And of course, part of the American identity is we are taught we are a nation of immigrants. Basic
Yes,
American thing. Every American kid learns this. We are a nation of immigrants. And I would say that's not how Thai people define Thailand. But the more I learn, like now I'm learning more about the South, I feel like Thailand is a nation of immigrants. Would you guys
Sure.
agree? I mean, it's much more mixed than I
Yeah.
think, but it's not part of the official Thai identity. Like the Thai government never says, we are a nation of immigrants.
No.
No.
But Thailand
We are very
is.
unified, like I said. At
But
least
actually,
we
but there
speak
are
the same
immigrants.
Buddhist, the same religion.
Right.
And
Actually, the Thai people migrated,
Yeah,
if you
too.
believe
Lana from the outside
histories,
China.
Sure.
migrated from southern China.
Right.
How true that is, I think there's some
Oh, really?
academic differences about it, but the conception is that it's a unified by respect for the royal family, by the language, and by certain customs. In fact, it's much more complicated.
Ethnically and racially, it seems to be more mixed than people. No one ever talks about that much, or at least Thai people don't seem to talk about it. But it's much just you
a lot
talking
of-
about the Mon influence. I mean, I was
Yeah.
aware of the Mons, but my students never talk about it. I'm sure some of them have Mon
Sure.
blood or Mon relatives.
Yeah,
but they never.
Mon migrate.
Former Prime Minister Anand Panjarachun was half Mon.
Yeah.
Some of the Thai kings had Chinese blood.
You also see it in Buddhism too, right? In
Yeah.
Thai Buddhism is animism and it's
Yeah,
it's
They are
Hindu,
pretty
very early.
similar. Popular Buddhism.
right?
Yeah.
But that's not talked about so often. It's just Buddhism, Thai Buddhism.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we talk about it.
Yes,
Talk
right. There's-
about in the
Book
yeah.
2 looks at
How the
the
different-
pushback against animism.
right.
Or maybe some
And-
people say that the growth of animism, and we have characters that believe in amulets
Yeah.
and tattoos and
Sure.
and things. In an uncertain world, where do you find protection?
Yeah, exactly.
And even this belief of the what we call popular Buddhism has been on for on and on since 200 years that we still believe the same because the Thai in general believe that the Hinduism is Buddhism. We have the story saying that because the Hinduism spread through Thailand maybe 100 years before Buddhism come from the south, Nakhon Si Thammarat, the town of Dhamma. So the Brahmin, used the boat and then spread on Buddhist belief. And then later on, when the Buddhist monks came, the Thai people just assume this is the same thing.
Oh, I see.
So they integrate very well. And because Buddhism is so, I would say, very abstract, the real teaching of Buddhism, that everything has to be mind, the hell and the heaven is in your mind, where in Hinduism it's really actually happen, when you die,
Sure,
you go.
sure.
So they integrate very well. And we have the story saying that the Hinduism and Buddhism is like a man and a woman. When the woman, like the Thai people, beautiful woman, sit in a bench, Hindu came and they wooing the woman, go close and the woman fell off the bench. The Hindu conquered Thai belief, you see.
Oh, okay.
So everyone still mistaken it that this is Buddhist. But when people even now, we have the character, the monk, which takes after Puttatat Bhikkhu, who died already, will try to reform Buddhism into the original way.
Well, every time I think I'm starting to get it figured out, this is 5 new layers are peeled back for me.
It's such a fascinating mix. I mean, Thai culture, it's just, there's so many different sources of it, and it really is a melting pot, but that's not how people
That's
talk
a really
about
interesting
Thailand.
insight. Yeah.
Like in America, it's a melting pot. Everyone says that, but people don't say that about Thailand.
Right.
No.
That's right. I think, and that's one of the things we're trying to, by implication, show in the books, that in fact, there are a mixture of ethnicities, cultures, religions that are part of Thailand, and this overarching national story that Thai rulers at least tell themselves is not completely accurate.
Right. You mentioned just briefly the protection of amulets and things like that, and there's one passage here that I highlighted, and it's one of the aforementioned horny ones. So, Paul, I'll give you the pleasure of reading this here. Just read that out for us, and we can talk a little bit about this.
Okay. In this case, Ploy is still quite a young woman, and she's concerned about her mother, who is worried that her husband, Ploy's father, is taking a minor wife.
Right.
And they're not having sex as much. And she overhears a conversation. Ploy pulled back and listened. They were talking about sex, something her mother had always refused to discuss with her. "What do I do with this?" Mother said, holding up a small glass vial of dark brown liquid, its seal wrapped in red thread. "That is the other part of my service," the old woman said. "This is necromantic oil, rare and powerful. It is diffused from the bodily fluids of a woman who died in childbirth. The oil was extracted from the chin of the deceased, the only way to ensure potency." Mother held up the tiny bottle to the lamplight. "Macham, listen carefully," the woman said. "Use your right hand to apply the oil above your eyebrows, smearing it on your skin with the middle finger. And that will make him love me, desire me again? To be absolutely sure, put 3 drops of the oil on your middle finger. When he lies with you, stroke his lingam with that finger, from the base to the tip, and nothing can stop him from loving you."
Pretty intense stuff. And again, we were talking earlier about how Thailand is going through this massive change, and that included, the character of Susa is a nurse, and she's really attracted by these new Western theories of medicine and things like that. So there's a lot of flux there. But this almost strikes me almost like voodoo,
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about Thai traditional medicine at that time and what it was like? And
I think
some
we
of this
should
stuff
differentiate herbal medicine from things like this.
Okay,
which
fair,
are
yeah.
It's more
Different.
animistic or magical.
animistic.
Animist.
So herbal medicine has some basis, in fact, that over the years, people find what works.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
These superstition things, something else.
It's not, superstition is just how the the villagers believe. In those days, for example, they don't have any medicine like modern medicine that can cure something. Like some people have high fever and went crazy, yelling, and so they think that person is infested by the ghost. Infested by the ghost. So they have no reason. So that's how animism came, right? And they saw something that is very strange, like the big trees, and they're afraid of the trees. They worship them. They put the candlestick into just from fear. It's like a anthropological point of view. The people who are afraid of something, they worship them just to make them safe. The Thai people like that. Still now, you hear the story. Some people found a big snake, and they captured it and worship.
Sure.
Right.
So it's just like that. But the real Buddhism is not like that. But then come to talk about herbal medicine. It's something completely different. My father was the herbal doctor. He's a monk, like Prasom. That's what my grandfather.
You still see this stuff to a degree. You still see
still now.
the Sakyan tattoos and the magical amulets, and every once in a while there'll be like one special amulet that suddenly is really popular.
This is, a part of that mix of different beliefs, different cultures, different ethnicities, the political challenges, and as I think you mentioned in the introduction, very rapid technological change.
Yeah.
During the period of these two books, Thailand went from having no hospitals to having scientifically established medical practices, telephone, steam trains, all came to Thailand in that period. You had the railway line was completed between the south and Bangkok. Sailing ships were pushed aside by steamships, and just so much change happening. And particularly in Book 2, you see the impact of World War I, where Thai soldiers went to France to fight.
Yeah.
And brought back the Spanish flu.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
That's Book 2.
Has there ever been a time in Thailand that went through as much rapid and wide-ranging change as this time that the books take place in?
It has to be the most change, just because I feel the more I read, I feel there was about 50 years where just there was an insane development.
Yeah.
I think that's
because of
right.
the Kingdom of the Fifth.
Yeah,
He's very modernized. And he figured out that if we hadn't developed ourselves to be as equal as the Westerners, we would be colonized, just like the Burmese and the Vietnam and Cambodia. The big example is that I read my history book that the British want to colonize Vietnam or Burma because they stick to their tradition. They ask these British merchants to bow and even crawl,
Wow, right.
to meet them, Rajas. The Thai king figured out, that's why we ought to be modernized. So the Thai king didn't mind. We have the picture of the French envoys who came to visit the Thai king, and they can stand behind the king and talk equally.
That goes back to the
King
time of Ayutthaya.
200 years ago.
But also King Chulalongkorn had Western teachers.
Yeah.
He never went to the West, but he sent all his sons
To the West.
to Britain, France, Germany, and Russia.
So again, that practicality of not forcing something through because they realized that would probably have negative repercussions.
Yeah.
Even Rama IV, who was brought up in a very traditional Thai way, learned English.
Yeah.
Sure.
And communicated by letter writing with Western powers, and had friends among the Christians who came to replace Buddhism.
องค์เจ้าคุณจักรพงศ์
unsuccessfully.
Sure.
We saw it. I just finished the really great show Shogun, the remake of Shogun.
Shogun. Yeah, I
which
read
was
that. Shogun.
we saw a similar thing happen in Japan. Japan was
Yeah.
like, that's it, no foreigners allowed, and they just closed the whole country down for 100 years.
Yeah,
or
but
however
we
long it
open
was.
up to
That's
the
right. Thailand,
foreigners.
yeah,
and
That's
Thailand
right.
went a different
we
route.
have the
yeah.
Japanese came during Uttaya period.
Yeah.
Paya Yamaha, the one who came to
Yeah.
to King Nara.
A Japanese
he
soldier headed the
advised
Thai
a lot
army.
of foreign advisors to help us develop our
Interesting.
country.
And if you notice one of the most powerful non-royal families in Thailand is the Bunak family.
Yeah,
For
Right.
many years
yeah, mostly the
was
king.
as powerful as the king. And where did they come from?
They're from Iran, aren't
They're
they?
from
Persian.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thailand is a
they're-
nation of immigrants.
Yeah.
That's right.
So why don't we return to your novel? So are you saying you have a fourth one in the planning
Well,
stages?
first, let us finish book 3.
So you're writing book 3 now? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Trying to
We
plot
have an outline and we have lots of research.
a lot research.
And this
to
will
go,
cover
yeah.
the period pretty much from 1922 to 1933. Again, a period where the earlier period was economic, social change. This is where the political change really hits home and the
We have
absolute
a-
monarchy is overthrown.
Yeah.
Exciting.
When we did our first show on your previous book, Radical Thought, Time, Mind, you talked about working together as a married couple and things like this. So how do you guys set the outline of the book? Do you just sit down and talk about where you want the characters to go and what the conclusion should be?
Which this book, this current book?
Both of them, the first one and the second one and the third one.
Well, as you've heard, a lot of the characters are based on Yuangrat's family. So
Yeah.
she was the one who told me over many years all about her family stories, and those kind of inspired us for those particular characters. And then we researched the period together. She's much better at the Thai language sources than I am, but we decide what we're going to research and look for documents and so
we went
on.
to the National Archive to read the old newspaper.
Oh, wow.
It's very interesting because they use the hand to wind around. And we did a lot of research. We went to talk to the experts in the South, talk to the professors in Dachapat, and visit places like in Phuket. We visit one of the Ang Yee's houses.
The
and,
secret society.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So we talk about how they ran.
So we do the
each
research
province.
together, and I lived in Bak Penang for 2 years, so a lot of the scenes are from my memories. So we do the research together. The characters pretty much start out with the outlines of Yuangrat's family, but then I do most of the writing, and then she looks at it and tells me pretty much where I've gone wrong in either Thai culture
or belief or
Thai
race.
beliefs, Buddhism, or on my female characters.
Yeah.
So that's her areas of expertise. So we have fairly well-defined roles.
Yeah.
That we always joke that we have a lot more arguments on the dance floor than we do when writing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, you guys are great dancers.
Yeah, as you know, that the Thai society is very class society, and we are defined each individual person on their background, right? If you are from a royal family, or you're a merchant, or you're a lawyer by profession too. So that's in our literature, in our fiction, we try to the language that he used in English. It doesn't say much, right? I and you, right? But in Thai we have chan, thơ, ku, mung, ke, eng, ka. So when I translate to Thai, I have to be aware of this translation. And I
Interesting.
hope we could express in English, but we couldn't. We couldn't do it. How did you?
Yeah, there are
It tells a lot
limitations
about that
in
person,
English.
you know.
Wait,
But
I feel like
we have a translation, a Thai
Yeah,
version of
about to
book one
finish.
will be coming out.
It's very hard.
Well,
Maybe the end of the year.
it's going through the final edit now.
Yeah, we
So that's of
translate
the
and
first
edit
book.
it and
Yes.
edit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, wrapping up here, the first book is called Beads on a String. a novel of Southern Siam. The second book, which just came out at the beginning of May here, is called Dark Karma, book 2 of the Beads on the String trilogy. And part 3 is being written as we speak. And yeah, honestly, they're really, really well done. They're very interesting. As I was reading them, actually, I was reminded of another book that I read, and I mean this as a compliment. It's a book that made me stop reading grown-up fiction, historical fiction, because it's a book by called A Fine Balance by a Canadian author called Rohinton Mistry. And it takes place in India in the 1950s, I think. And it's a similarly styled look at people living at that time dealing with class and technological change and race and money and economics and discrimination and politics. And I remember it was a very well received, it won many, many awards when it came out. And it was so heartbreaking and so tragic that when I was done, I'm like, I love that book and I hate it. I'm going to go read science fiction. I'm going to read history books.
Right.
You know, it reminded me of that in the best way, and that it's the characters are interesting and captivating, and you really learn a lot about the time and place. So that's what I'm taking away from this book. So everyone, I recommend these books highly, highly. They're really, really well done, and you really start to learn more about Southern Thailand, which, as living in our Bangkok bubble, we often don't get a lot of knowledge about.
For sure.
Well, let me assure you that as flattered as we are by the comparison, our books, although they have tragedy, and I know there's one that you feel strongly about.
Not happy about that.
But there is tragedy, and those times were difficult. People died at a much higher rate than they do these days.
Yeah.
And the fiction has to reflect that. But basically, both of them end on a high note.
Okay, good.
Good. Excellent.
Good
to hear. Good to hear.
Well, let's end this interview on a high note. Thank you guys for coming down, Paul and Yuangrat. It's a pleasure to sit down and chat with you. And everyone, check out these books. They're on Kindle. They're in the bookstores, and they're well worth picking up and reading. So, yeah. Thank you for coming.
Thank
on.
you, guys.
Thank you for giving your time.
Thank you. We'll talk to you again when the third one comes out.
Yeah, actually, Dark Karma just appeared on Amazon this morning.
Oh, nice.
All right. Cool.
Excellent.
So,
all right.
And it's available on the River Books website here in Thailand.
Great. Okay. Well, we'll have you back for part 3, 4, 5, however many you decide to do.
May we live that long.
Sure.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
You.
Thank you.
Well, as I said before, they're the two easiest people to interview. These books, the fact that they're mixing fiction with real historical events just makes them even cooler. And it's just amazing at the turn of the century, from the 1800s to the 1900s, it's just shocking how fast Thailand developed. It really went, I don't know what the definition would be, but I mean, we've talked before, even in our trivia questions, just about how just completely undeveloped Thailand was like in 1850, 1860, 1870. But then by like 1920, it's got movie theaters.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, talk about getting whiplash, right? Like,
for sure.
Like industrial revolution whiplash, I mean, every country went through a lot of changes at the time, but Thailand at the time was, just because of their unique political position, and not to mention the geographic position and the politics of the time, they just sort of benefited a great deal from this stuff, which shot them out of a slingshot into the present day,
No doubt. So, I mean, you have that going on, which that alone would be a very interesting story, let's say in Bangkok. But to have the story set in the South, where you have, I mentioned it before, I think I mentioned it last week. We talked about it in the interview, of course, but I'm just fascinated by the different cultural influences down there, and how, it was funny at one point in the interview, they mentioned that, like, essentially in the South, it's almost like the Thais were the foreigners, because there's already like, there's Malay down there, there's Mons, there's Chinese, and I just find that mixture fascinating. It just has a different flavor than Central Thailand. So the fact that you have all these economic and technological developments taking place in the midst of this weird, like, melange of different cultures, it's pretty crazy.
Ooh, melange, 5 points for that. I'm fascinated with the amount of research that must have been done for this. And, they, shortly after we did the interview, they spoke at the Foreign Correspondents Club to talk about this, which both you and I went to. And I asked them a question. I got up on the microphone and asked them, I said, when you're writing words that are spoken by, in this case, King Rama V, because he's a small character in the book, and he says a few things. I said, what kind of research and are you scared of writing stuff, considering les majestés and all that stuff? Like, what kind of risks are you comfortable with taking about putting these words into this person's mouth? And they basically said it's just everything he said is based on roughly what he said in that situation.
Pretty much straight historical. Right.
Yeah, because he was just so well recorded and covered, and like everyone was there and listening and writing down what he did. So there was no danger there. But still, it's just all these little things that they had to figure out and get through. And it's an amazing work to put all together in a really compelling story.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a vivid story. I got to just sit down and start reading. That's the only solution.
Yeah, well, I got a couple of days off work coming up, and I think I'm going to spend one of them just sitting in a Starbucks. Going to order one coffee and sit there for 6 hours and just read the book.
Cool. I'm sure Starbucks will be really happy with that.
Hey, as long as I bring my my duvet like a university student to fend off the air conditioning, I think I'll be fine.
As long as you bring your huge comforter to keep you warm.
That's right. We should sell those, the Bangkok Podcast branded Starbucks duvet.
That's genius. That's a good idea.
Guaranteed to keep you warm for those long study sessions in Starbucks. Anyway, thank you very much, Paul and Yuangrat. It was always great to sit down and chat. And we'll have you back on the show when part 3 comes out. Looking forward to those.
No doubt. Thank you very much.
All right, let's do something that we call Would You Rather, where one of us picks 2 contrasting situations tied to Thailand to debate and choose which one we'd prefer. Ed, this week you're on the hot seat, or am I on the hot seat? I don't know. Ed, whatever it's going to be, you're going to ask the question and I'm going to answer.
All right, Mr. Guy, I'm putting you on the hot seat.
Ooh.
You've got a buddy, never been to Asia at all. Okay. And he wants to know if he should go to Hong Kong or Bangkok first. Now, I think the obvious answer is Bangkok because you're here, you could take care of him. But let's pretend you weren't here. So you can't guide him. You cannot take care of him. It doesn't even have to be a buddy. It could be a stranger. Would you recommend, as a first visit to Asia, is Hong Kong a better introduction? Or is Bangkok a better introduction?
This is actually a really interesting question because I've had a similar conversation with a buddy of mine who lives in Singapore. Now this is a very good friend of mine, but he's not really into getting too far off the beaten track when he travels. He likes to have everything planned. He likes to know what to expect. Doesn't like surprises. Let
me add actually, just to clarify, let me add a little bit of twist, just so we don't have to worry too much. Let's pretend it's the older Hong Kong, because we talked before about how with the changes in Hong Kong, it might not be at its peak. So maybe
you're saying like turn of the century Hong Kong, 2000 Hong Kong kind of.
Yeah, let's do something like that because I know currently it's I think it seems to be in it, because of political situation, it might not be at its peak. So let's pretend we're talking about 2000 Hong Kong.
Okay. Well, this is interesting because I have told my friend, because he said, I like Singapore. It's very westernized, it's very predictable and safe. And he was asking me about traveling around Southeast Asia. And I said, okay, well, start in Bangkok. And then once you get that done and you're comfortable with it, then you can go to like Ho Chi Minh City. And then once that's done, you can go to Phnom Penh. And then once you've got all those under your belt, then maybe you can head to like Yangon or something like that, right?
Okay, but that's Southeast Asia. But what if we include
exactly? But I'm saying if my friend is the type of guy who is up for anything and just like, I'm a crazy guy, I would say come to Bangkok. But if it was a friend who likes a little bit more structure and a little bit sort of a slower easing into Asia, I would say go to Hong Kong first because I think it's more westernized and it would be more recognizable to someone who's maybe not so prepared for the crazy Asianness.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that's a pretty good answer. The reason why I thought the question was interesting is that, like I mentioned last week or earlier on the bonus show, anyway, like Hong Kong is just unique, and it is a weird, interesting, eclectic mix of East and West. So maybe for the total Asian newbie like Hong Kong would be an easier transition.
I think so. Yeah. Like it would be like dipping your toe into a warm bath, whereas like Bangkok would be just jumping right in without testing the water first.
Yeah.
And some people might prefer that, but some people might not.
It is a little bit of a tough question. I mean, you and I are both Bangkok guys, and so it's easy for us to just say Bangkok. The thing about Bangkok is, even though it is very different from Western cities, and it can be quote unquote a shock, it's also true that Thai people are just so nice and welcoming, and that it's so tourist friendly that they're, you know what I mean? It's like a weird thing. It's not like, so there is, I think, a measure of culture shock with some things you encounter here, but it is ameliorated by the fact that, again, it's tourist friendly and foreigner friendly. And at least they smile here, like, which they don't do in Hong Kong. So obviously, if we factor in our jobs and our roles, we're always going to tell people to come to Bangkok for sure.
Sure, yeah, but going in cold, I'd say it depends what type of person your friend is.
Oh, that's a good answer. I mean, Hong Kong is probably an easier answer for most people. It would probably be an easier city. Especially, I guess the other twist might be money. I guess if we might have to know, like, well, how much money do you have, dude?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So if you're on a budget, I'm going to guess Bangkok's just a better place to come.
Yeah. Agree. Good question, though.
Very good answer. I think we roughly agree on that one.
Nailed it.
Alrighty. A final thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Totes my goats. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that we'll feature on the show. Hit me up on Threads at BKKGreg. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take it easy out there. Take care of yourselves and your family and your friends. We'll see you back here next week.
For sure. And access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. Dude, I'm about to lose it. The elephant man. The elephant man.
I'm not an animal.
So funny. I barely got that out without cracking up.
So funny. Oh, crying. Just feeling like totally like the world has just done you the worst injustice. That's a first world problem. Or is it? Or maybe it's a developing country problem. I don't know.
Hold on, I gotta blow my nose now. I feel like I want to shoot a video now, like standing at the side of the road, like, I am not an animal. Like, how dare you abandon me?
It's a little clock on the bottom right side of the screen. It's like 9 seconds go by and you're just enraged.
So funny.
That's great.